Hello everyone, we're here for our first For the Boys audio recording. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Alex. I'm 26 from Sheffield. I'm just going to speak a little bit about my experiences.
So when did you first notice changes in your mental health?
So, originally when I was like 16, 17, I went to college. Big change in my life. I started, completely new surroundings and things. And I think that's when I first started feeling like distinctive feelings of anxiety, and that's when it really started. I started noticing it in myself, sort of thing. Little things were triggering it off, like being away from family, big changes, and that is like sort of one of the key factors of being anxious is not knowing your surroundings and stuff like that. So I think it's important to be able to recognise that, you know, if something does change in your life, it might trigger certain things off inside you. So for me, starting college and doing something brand new, meeting new people, being around different people that you're not used to is one of the main things. But it's okay to feel like that, I guess. It's sort of adapting to it. And for me, I just wasn't ready for that. And that's where I first started, like, feeling a certain way. I didn't really recognise what it was because I was too young to sort of notice. But it's that's what people don't understand. They don't understand that anxiety is like a real thing. They just think, well, I'm being stupid or whatever. It's important to be able to recognise it and accept that you feel in that certain way.
So how did the anxiety start up then when you first started attending college?
So at first, I'd just start like feeling a little uncomfortable. So out, like I said, out of my comfort zone, and then things started to happen to me where I'd feel like I wasn't in control of situations. And that's another important thing. So I'd be worried about things that I wasn't in control of. So, for example, if my parents weren't there, I'd be thinking that something bad was going to happen to them, or close friends or loved ones. It could be the same as that. So I'd be constantly ringing them and texting them to make sure that they were okay. And at that point, I'd not nailed it down to having anxiety because I felt like I was too young, but it was starting out then. And when I think back to it now, that's what it was. It was anxiety. I just didn't know it right at that point. And it was quite aggressive because I was like, constantly every time I got a break from class, I'd be ringing home to see if things were all right. And when I was at home, the thing is, it triggered from there, and then I sort of took it home with me as well. So it started coming into my everyday life. It's not always when you're just in a certain situation. It can be in every single aspect of your life. That's what happened to me. I'd be worried if my mum was going to like the supermarket. I'd be worried that something was going to happen to her. So I'd go with her, and it was like crippling me because I was having to stop certain points of my life and social life at like such a key age of like 17, 18, and I was having to make sure that my mum was alright or my dad was alright or whatever sort of thing. So as an example, like at 18, when a lot of my friends were going out drinking and stuff, I wasn't able to do that because I was scared of like leaving my comfort zone and stuff. So I had to experience that a little bit later in life, but I was scared that I was never going to experience it. And I suppose that you've just got to sort of step back and think to yourself, like, I'm actually suffering really bad now because it's having an effect on me personally. I'm not able to do things because of it. And I think that's one of the big talking points sort of thing.
So you mentioned worrying about your parents and loved ones. Would you say that was the main focus of your anxiety?
So to start off with, yeah, that was the first thing that I started worrying about. Like, it wasn't anything personal towards me. It was more of like, I'm not in control of this certain situation. I'm out of my comfort zone and I'm not able to do anything about it. And I'd be worrying, like I said, about things happening to people. I'd be worrying about me being on public transport and something bad happening, even though it was like a 10-minute train journey. It's important to understand that certain people can, when they're put out of the comfort zone, be told like, oh, you're just being silly, it's because you've never done it before. But for me, it wasn't that. I wasn't being silly. I was genuinely like scared, and I was really struggling to like adapt to doing things on my own. So yeah, that's like the first sort of signs of it, and when I first started feeling it, and just noticing like little things that I wasn't bothered about before that I was really bothered about now, and it was just starting to have like a massive effect on me, like personally, and just in everyday life, basically, like I've just said.
So it's definitely getting worse. What was it like to live with all those constant worries and feelings of anxiety?
It's kind of like you've got something just looming over you all the time, and to paint a picture, it just feels like you've just got a big shadow over the top of your head, and you can't you can't get rid of it. You can't shake it off. No matter how many times people say to you, "Oh, grow up," or "Come on, shake it off," or "Do this, do that." It's just impossible for you to do that. Um, and you put it down to probabilities and stuff, where someone will say to you that there's a very unlikely chance of that thing happening. So, as an example, if my mum was going to go to the supermarket that's 5 minutes away, and I'd be going with her, or what are the chances of like a car crash or anything bad happening? Well, yeah, it's really, really unlikely, but you can never sit and tell me that's definitely not going to happen. So it's sort of like you kind of know that things aren't going to happen, but you're just not really willing to take that risk, and that's where it like sort of really gets to you, and stops you from being able to do things you want to do because you're too busy trying to fight off like your anxiety sort of thing.
So, how did you feel in those situations when you were out of control?
So I'd feel like I'd feel really lonely. I'd feel really hot. Sometimes get really upset. I think that was due to me being younger as well. Not that there's anything wrong with getting upset now, but you know, I'd just feel like really, really uncomfortable and like unable to talk to anyone. I'd feel like until I knew that that situation was over, I'd not be able to relax. So dealing with it on longer time scales was really hard for me because there'd be examples where my mum would tell me that she's going on a night out and it'd be 2 weeks away. So for that 2 weeks, I'm going to be worrying about that night. Why should I worry about something that's not even happened?
Yeah.
But I did, and I couldn't stop it. And for those 2 weeks of my life that I'm never going to get back, I constantly worried about something that had not even happened yet. And that's one of the main factors of anxiety. Um, you worry about things that have not even happened. You worry about things that aren't real, and they scare you when really there's nothing to be scared about.
You mentioned there that you felt unable to talk to people. Were you able to talk to friends and family about what you were going through?
I felt like I couldn't talk to anybody about it because I didn't really know what it was. Sometimes I think if I'd have sat and talked to somebody at a younger age, would I still be like, would I have gone through what I've gone through? But I spoke to my mum about it and stuff. Obviously, my mum was a lot older than me at this point, so she'll have already recognised that something wasn't right. Um, trying to speak to, I didn't really speak to my dad as much. I felt like my dad probably might not understand it as well as what my mum would. I don't know if my dad would understand, because my dad's, as far as I knew my dad, I just saw him as like a person who didn't really have any worries. Not that he didn't, but he didn't show it because that was just how he is, sort of thing. So coming back to, he was kind of just like a man's man. Like I think that's a problem in this day and age. Like a lot of older men, they see it that they can't talk, or they see it that they can't voice their opinion or tell people how they're feeling because it's frowned upon, or it's seen as like, you know, men can't feel like that. But why can't men feel like that? Why can't boys feel like that? It's just a certain way of feeling. So I felt uncomfortable talking to my dad about it because I didn't want him to feel like I was like any less of a man than what I should be at that age, sort of thing. And that's really crucial because it's a massive thing, and me talking about it like I have done over the years has helped me. So maybe if I'd have tackled it at a younger age, I'd feel like I might not have suffered as much as what I have done. But it's never too late to talk. If you get a chance to talk, no matter how long you've been suffering.
So it started in college. How long did all this actually go on for?
So after starting at like 16, 17 years old, that's when I majorly realised problems. It went on till I was like 21, 22 maybe, until I sought help and actually got, the right advice that I needed to get. Like when I think about it now, 5 years is a really long time of sort of like suffering and before I actually realised that I needed to do something about it. There was certain parts of it, like I was in a long relationship again, getting into a comfort zone and feeling like you're doing the same thing every day. I started taking it out on that as well. So with my girlfriend wanting to do things with her friends, just because I was scared of doing what she wanted to do, I'd sort of take it out on her and not let her do it, and started dragging that down with me. And eventually, after like 4 years of being with her from a young age, we broke up, and I felt like really sad. And I don't think it was because I was like really upset about the breakup. I think it was more that I was sad that anxiety had like got in the way of what we like built over 4 years. So when it started affecting my relationships and stuff, I was more scared of what it's going to do to me in the future rather than what it's doing to me now. And that's what I'd been avoiding all the time. I'd just been dealing with it and putting up with it and letting it get to me. And then I started actually thinking, well, I need to start looking into the future and thinking, what's it going to do to me in the long run? So yeah, I mean that was when I started realising and thinking that I needed to sort of get some help.
So through all those relationship troubles before it actually broke down, were you ever able to actually speak to your girlfriend about it?
Yeah, I did a little bit, but again, I was more at this point, scared of what people would think about me. So I spoke to like someone on a helpline, and they said to me on this helpline, like, if you don't change how you are, you're gonna lose this person out of your life. And I did. In the long run, I did. And looking back on it, I feel like everything happens for a reason. And sad to say, but I feel like she was only there now as like a learning experience for me. And it's awful because I sort of lost that through me being how I am. Like I would get angry and like take it out on her and be like, oh, this is like, I don't know, just silly things. And I didn't step back and think to myself, look, this is you doing this, not anyone else. But in a good way, it made me wake up and realise, like, look, if you don't change this, you're gonna mess things up long term, and you only get like one go at it. So you need to sort it out. All the built up rage inside of me was just getting to me, and it was because I'd not spoke to anyone about it, because I was feeling so low and so scared about everything. It was just affecting me like mentally, and not doing my relationships with anybody any good at all, really.
So before we started the podcast, while we were chatting, you mentioned that as well you had quite a significant bout of depression. Could you tell me a bit more about that? When did that start to creep in?
Yeah, so after that happened with my girlfriend, I got a job that I really enjoyed. So for about 18 months of my life, I felt like quite positive about things. I had like a little bit more of a better outlook on life. Stopped worrying about like parents and stuff as much. Felt like I was growing up really and getting more to terms with just general life and, having to go to work every day. But because I was enjoying my job, I was growing up and starting to appreciate things a little bit more. I lost my job at the age of, I think it was like 23, 24. And just like I did when I had to go to college on my own, I had to leave all my friends again and go and work in a call centre, where I had to speak every day to people about parking fines and get shouted at all day every day. People have to work. They don't have an option. And when I went to work in this call centre, I saw it as like a stopgap to me getting back into another job that I wanted. And I ended up being there for like 18 months. My anxiety started up a little bit worse again because I was in a situation that I wasn't enjoying. And I went on a holiday and came back from the holiday, and everything sort of just hit me at once. I was supposed to be getting a promotion at work which was going to benefit me, and it didn't end up happening. I was seeing a girl briefly at that point, and I kind of broke that off. And again, I just feel like it was all because of how I was feeling mentally at that point. I just spiraled into a really like dark hole. And this is where I actually, after all the anxiety and stuff, this is where I actually thought to myself, like, I'm going to have to do something about this now, because this is worse than I have ever been. At this point, I was like, it wasn't anxiety, it was I was like thoroughly depressed. And you hear that saying mentioned quite a lot on a day-to-day basis in like office jobs. You'll hear people say, oh, I'm depressed, when truly they're not depressed. Not that I'm like diagnosing people, but they're not depressed. If you're depressed, you don't say you're depressed. You don't want to say you're depressed, because it like kills you to say it. So yeah, I mean, I was just like, I was going home after work and shutting my curtains, not leaving my bedroom hardly. I didn't want to talk to people, which is complete opposite to what I'm like, because I love talking to people and being out. I just couldn't enjoy time with my friends. And all this never happened when I had anxiety. I could enjoy my time with my friends. I just used to cover my anxiety up. But at this point, I was like completely just like, I was done. I couldn't even enjoy time out of work. I spoke to my mum about it. She told me that the job was like really, really affecting me. I didn't know that at this point. So that's important to recognise, that like it might be something triggering it that you don't know about. It could be a job, it could be a relationship. It could just be that you've having to deal with something on a daily basis that's really getting you down, and you just don't know about it. That's why it's important to like reevaluate and don't be scared of change, because I was like terrified of change, and until I actually thought to myself, do you know what, change might not be such a bad thing. Up until that point I suffered massively. So yeah, just the fact of like not being able to socialise. I mean, I went to tram lines one year, so I've been surrounded by like thousands of drunk happy people. I just felt like I was just stood with like a black cloud over my head. I just felt like crying, and I was like a 23-year-old lad. I was supposed to be in prime of my life, and I was like, it's just stood in a crowd of people feeling like I could burst into tears. I just couldn't smile, couldn't enjoy myself, and I was like trying to go out and use drinking as like an excuse to try and make myself feel better, and it just really wasn't working. I was like making myself feel worse without knowing it, basically. So at this point, I'm hating my job. I've left a relationship behind that wasn't really working out. I'm drinking a lot more, going out more than I should be, and it was just making me feel worse. And it got to the point where I was thinking to myself, like, I really, I just don't even want to, like, I just feel like I don't even want to do anything anymore. Like, I got so dark, into such a dark place, that I was thinking, why do I feel like this? I need to start feeling better, otherwise I just don't feel like there's any point. I'm wasting away. I'm going to end up like I'm just going to completely deteriorate if I don't change something. And that's why, it's just so important to be able to, just reach out and talk to anyone that you can, sort of thing. Because I felt like I was dying inside, and that's the scariest part. Like, it's unexplainable to some people, but when you physically feel like something's tearing you apart from the inside, it's just the worst feeling in the world. Like, I wouldn't wish it upon my worst enemy. Like, I wouldn't wish feeling how I felt on anyone. And to me, you know, to be able to say that and look back on it now and remember the feeling that I felt is just, it was just horrific. Like, I can't even really think about it, and being able to talk about it now makes me feel like quite proud, because back then, I mean, I think they were like my mom and a couple of my mates that knew, and apart from that, no one else really understood and no one else really knew, and it was just so, it was scary, it was just terrifying. I didn't think it were possible to get out of it, but obviously I'm proof that you can. So you can't sort of just, it's so hard to say it, but you can't let it get better of you, even though it's so easy to let it get the better of you, sort of thing. So yeah.
So during that period of depression, did you feel like there was anything contributing to that, or was there anything that made it particularly worse?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, there's a lot of things that can trigger it, and people are different. I was trying to plaster it over by like trying to drink and stuff, and I think that, you know, you don't think it at the time when it's actually happening, but that's some of the darkest times that I can like personally remember. You might be able to cover it up for a night, but the next day when you wake back up, you're just back to square one. So this is where I've seen people, not me personally, but I've seen people sort of deteriorate and just turn to constantly drinking or constantly doing something or whatever, you know, constantly abusing some sort of like thing to try and make their feelings go away. But that's when I felt worse, like having to try and use something or to try and do something to make you feel better for a certain amount of time. In the long run, it's just going to make you feel worse. So it's just papering over the cracks, really. It's never going to fix it. Everyone knows it, and you know it as well. But it's about taking action and actually like getting away from it. So for me, one day I was just like, right, if I don't stop this now, I'm never gonna get any better, and something bad's probably gonna happen as well. Not that I'd ever like attempt to do anything like serious or a thought seriously about it, but for me to be able to sit there and think, well, I'm getting fed up of this now. Me feeling like this is making me feel like I could just give up, sort of thing. I felt like I was like at rock bottom, and I couldn't get out of this big pit that I was in. So, you know, drinking and doing things is like, for me, the biggest, like, the thing that you need to avoid more than anything else, sort of thing. Having a drink with your mates is different to abusing something for a particular reason. So for me, it was sort of like, I want to get drunk to try and forget about all this, but the next day, you're going to wake up, you're going to be hungover, alcohol's a depressant as well, so it's going to make you feel 10 times worse. So what is the point in adding to something that you're trying to get rid of? Do you know what I mean? Because I can remember like at the bar and stuff, and you'd be like, oh, I'll get a drink and then I'll get a shot, and I'm just taking it too far, and then you're like, you wake up next day and you're like, what on earth? Like, you don't appreciate it because you're in a bad state of mind as it is. If you're in a good state of mind and you go out and have a drink, you really enjoy it, but you enjoy it for the right reasons, because you're not doing it for the sake of it. You're doing it because you're happy and you want to have a good time, sort of thing. Using it as like a substitute to be happy is just the complete wrong thing to do. If anything, you need to just get as far away from it as you can until you feel stable enough to trust yourself again to have a drink or whatever. I still drink all the time. Like now, I can go out and have a good laugh with my mates and I feel great. But back then, when I was out, I used to like go into toilets and just want to cry and not want to be there. And it's just a time in your life where you've got to step back from it for a little bit. And it's like going on a diet, really. Like if you eat loads and you get really fat, there's got to be a point where you think to yourself, if I want to lose weight, I need to get away from eating crap all the time. So when I was depressed, drinking and whatever was making me feel worse. So what did I need to do? I need to get away from it, because otherwise it's never going to get any better. Just like if you don't stop eating fast food or whatever, you're never going to lose weight. And that's just like a comparison that's so true, because once you make yourself feel better and you get used to, feeling happy about general life again, that's when you can actually start enjoying things and, you know, seeing things as a treat rather than something that you feel like you've got to do.
So is cutting back on like drinking and going out an important part of you actually starting to feel better?
Yeah, so it's basically, that's what drinking's for. It's for going out and having a good time and letting your hair down, not getting yourself in a state to a point where you just making you feel more crap than what you did before. And I think this is one of the main reasons why I wanted to do this, is because I see lads that are doing that now, and I don't know how they're feeling inside. They might be having time of their life, but I know that there's some of them that are out there that are doing it for the sake of it. They're either being peer pressured, or they're doing it because they don't know what else to do, and they don't, and inside they feel like they're rotting away. That's why I'm here, because I want to reach out to them people. If you're listening to me talk and you feel like how I've described, then just take my advice and try it. Just try it out. If it don't work, that's you. That's not. You're obviously not the same as me, but I'm not lecturing people to stop drinking. I'm not like boring and don't do this, don't do that. But just try it. Just try, either stop drinking or cut down or get a new job or get a hobby, go out and exercise. Just do something different in your life that you're not enjoying. Just take it away. So you might be in a toxic relationship, you might be scared to leave it because it's all basically. But sometimes you've just got to think to yourself, if I don't do something now, I'm going to feel like this for maybe the rest of my life, and you might not be able to come back from it. Something bad might actually end up happening to you, and that's just what we don't want. That's the main reason that I'm here, because I don't want to see people suffer and be, get to the point where they can't come back from it, sort of thing.
So when you realised you needed help, where did you go for it? Like, what services did you access?
So originally I spoke to my GP. I went to the doctor, told them how I was feeling. They referred me to something called IAPT, which is a service that's available for free through your doctor, and it's someone that you can talk to more in depth about mental health issues. I did some one-to-one counselling in person, and also on the telephone, like one-to-one CBT talking, just basically, getting a little bit more in depth into why these things might be going on in your brain. And just basically, like, I was looking forward to getting things off my chest. So when you're speaking to a counsellor, you don't even know this person, but it's nice just to be able to get listened to. Some people out there might not ever have anyone to listen to. So yeah, it's good to be able to just, speak to someone, and actually I feel like you've got someone there to listen to you, sort of thing. Seek it even from friends and family if you can.
So was it all one-to-one?
So yeah, I also did like group sessions and stuff, which I found great. I think mainly that was because, so that was more of like an anxiety group session, where when I turned up and saw people there that were like my age, I was kind of shocked to see that they were in my boat and they were trying to get to where I were as well. So, as an example, I went outside on a break and saw a kid that were literally like my age, and when I just went up to him and just basically just like, I bet he thought like, Jesus, like, you're forward, because I just said to him like, what's wrong? Like, why do you feel like you do? And he said to me like everything that I was feeling, and it was just like, look, his body expression was like looking in a mirror to me. But for me to be able to see that And I know it's awful that someone else was going through it, but it made me feel like less alone and more comfortable that somebody else was actually trying to get to it. Because I'm not talking about it as like how I felt. It was more like I was doing this to try and get away from it. Like doing these sessions was me trying to escape that feeling, and that's what you've got to do. You've got to try and you're probably never going to escape it fully, but you need to be able to try and just counteract it as much as you possibly can. So seeing that other person, who I've never seen again in my life since, made me feel like I'm not alone here. Like there's other people that are going through this, and it kind of felt like as a togetherness, you were trying to get out of a bad situation, which is it's nice. It's what everyone. It's probably what everyone were there for. So I'd probably highly recommend it, to be honest. More than 1-to-1. If you want to get something off your chest, 1-to-1's good because no one else can hear you. But comparing experiences with other people, it's sad, but at the same time, it feels good because you don't feel like you're the only one going through it, which is, I think it was beneficial, definitely.
Was there anything else you did that you feel contributed to you building that better mental health?
I think for me, more importantly than going to doctors, and you should do all that stuff regardless, but it's lifestyle changes as well. That's what's worked for me. Like, I know it sounds stupid, but start going to the gym, get like get a new aftershave or something, start making yourself feel a little bit better. Start being cleaner, start like, start prioritizing yourself rather than, if you're feeling like shit, just try and change things that are going to stop you feeling like that. Like, as soon as you see a change in your body or you feel a change in your body, it might spur you on to do better things, sort of thing. That's what it did for me. I felt a lot better when I lost weight, and then I kind of lost weight accidentally, but then I took it into my stride. I thought, oh well, I might as well start going to gym now because I can run again. I can play football again, and it made me feel loads better. So yeah.
So after accessing mental health services and making all those lifestyle changes that you talked about, how did things start to turn around?
So first things first is I met my girlfriend that I'm currently with now. That was one of the things that helped me a lot. I got a new job back at where I was working before, where I really enjoyed. I lost a lot of weight that I've now put back on, but that's not for a bad reason. That's just from enjoying food. But yeah, I lost about, through the period of depression that I've just spoke about, I lost about 2.5 stone. Yeah, from going out and drinking a lot and not eating properly, and I didn't have an appetite to eat, and I was smoking like instead of eating because I was that like low, and that's the only real good thing that came out of it, that I lost a lot of weight, but it wasn't for the right reasons. But then when I got my job back, and a little bit before that, I started playing football again. I started exercising again, going to gym. All things that just make you feel like a lot better than what you did before, what you were doing. Like, if you're abusing your body, you might not think it and you might not be able to see it, but on inside, like mentally and physically, it's just doing you so much bad. I just felt like my brain was just frying away, like everything like inside me was just getting worse and worse and worse. So yeah, just swap things around, seek new relationships, talk to new people, get a new hobby, get a new job, just change something that's making you feel a certain way. Like for me, I didn't know that it was my job until my mum said it to me, and I was like, it can't be. Like a job can't make me feel like this. Like a job and not having a healthy lifestyle can't make me feel like this. Like I'm just like, I'm ill. And I was ill. I was mentally ill. But the remedy to get it better is to change things that you don't realise that are getting you down. I think in this generation as well, so much focus on going out and doing stupid things, drinking, doing drugs, and it's so popular and common in this day and age that just because everyone else is doing it, you don't have to do it. Like, and if you do it, try and cut it out. Like, try something different, sort of thing. Because you never know, it might change the way you look at everything.
So, how have all those changes and interventions actually made a difference to you? Like, probably the most important question to ask is, like, how are you? How are you now?
So I'm 26 at the minute. Anxiety's like never left me all my life. I've just sort of learned with how to combat it a lot better than what I knew how to before, and that's just through experience and being able to talk more freely about it than what I could. So another example is that I used to go to sleep at night all the time and I'd worry about things. But I've sort of got this thing in when I go to bed now, I'll think about things that I want to think about rather than worrying about things. And I never used to be able to do that. But just through sort of like training and speaking to people, I know one piece of advice that I got was like having like a worry hour. So you have like 1 hour a day where you worry about everything that's going on in your mind, and then for the rest of the day you try not to think about it. For me, at first, it just didn't work at all. I was like, this is stupid. I'm worrying all the time. But eventually, you sort of like start thinking, well, I've already thought about that. I don't really need to think about it anymore. Because I was worrying about things that were never going to happen as well. And it weren't like, you know, worrying about money and stuff. It was just like ridiculous things. And I was like, I don't need to think about that. Time's the best healer for it, because eventually you will click, and if you do things to benefit yourself rather than do things to abuse yourself, you will start feeling benefits. Time will heal you as well. So it's just about not giving in, and the best medicine is yourself. Like, make sure that you're doing things to fight it. Don't just give in. And that's what I did. So like, I gave in loads of times and broke down and gave up and whatever. Don't, like I said, get a job, get a new job, get a new hobby, do something, see someone, talk to someone, make a big change in your life, and you never know, it could work massively. But yeah, I mean, I think it's important to realise that you might never feel 100% better, and that's not a bad thing. It's just a case of learning how to be able to control it a little bit better, and learning exactly what it is rather than just dealing with it and not talking about it. If you bottle it up and you don't speak about it, it's just going to get you down and down and down, and you're just going to feel quite depressed and lonely, and you're just going to feel like everything's sort of against you. Whereas if you learn how to talk about it and accept it, you'll be able to think to yourself, do you know what, even though I do feel like this, I'm not going to let it sort of stop everything that I'm doing. There's always going to be things that you're going to be worried about doing, but just it's not going to stop you from doing what you want to do with your life, sort of thing. So yeah, I think now, even though I still have problems with my anxiety, I'm definitely not depressed at all. I wake up every morning, I'm happy, I worry about things, but it don't get me down. I just get on with it, and I'll never ever stop worrying because I'm like world's biggest worrier. But now, on a day-to-day basis, I laugh like all the time. I'm happy. I've got a job that I love. I've got friends. I'm in a relationship. And at one point, I didn't have any of that. I'm just an example of, like, you can actually turn it round if you want to turn it round. Like, if you don't give in and you sort of like battle against it, which is so hard, there's a light at the end of the tunnel for everyone. And it's so important to sort of seek help and do things to benefit you.
So, how do you feel about your experiences, looking back on them?
So, if I think back to my worst part now, I feel like, how did I let myself get so low? But in a way, you know, I just don't want to look at it like that, because it's part of my life now and I can't ever change it. So it's been a learning curve for me. And if I'd have not gone through that, I might not be where I am now. So I've kind of embraced it, and it feels good to not be in that situation anymore. And I feel like I was one of the main reasons of getting out of that rut because I helped myself. So I don't feel stupid about feeling like that, because if you do, if you feel ashamed, if it comes and happens again, you're going to probably feel like you did before. And I just don't feel stupid. I don't feel ashamed. I feel like I've just got to take it in and embrace it and accept that were a part of my life at one point. I felt like that for a reason. And, I did my best to get out of it, and I didn't give in, sort of thing. So if you've not been to seek any help yet, and you do, you'll feel so much better. Like, I felt proud of myself for being able to go and speak out, because so many people, especially men, are scared. They're scared of being frowned upon because they don't feel like it's a manly thing to do. They feel like it's frowned upon for a man to be able to talk about his feelings. Like, we're all the same, really, if you think about it. We've all got feelings, and they can all be hurt. And if you are able to speak out about them and be truthful, you'll feel 10 times better. So embrace it. Don't feel stupid about it. And just actually go out and think to yourself, if I don't do this, something bad could end up happening to me. And I'm proud that I've been there. I was a victim of it. I got help. I got better. And now I'm sat talking about it with someone that I've never met before. And I'm doing that because I want people who are in my position to get to where I'm at now. So it's kind of like, look at what I've done, and, take a step back. You only get one chance, so embrace it. And once you past it, be proud and just, think to yourself, I've done it. And if it ever does come back, you're going to be 10 times more ready to combat against it than what you were. But now, it's coming up to like 3 years of me being happy, so that's a success for me. Longest period for me anyway that I've felt like this, so that's good. Feels good to say it as well.
So if there's one last thing that you could say to anyone listening, what would it be?
Just, it's okay. It's a saying that's been used a lot. It's okay to not be okay. So it's alright if you feel like low. Like, just don't be scared of it. Just come out and face it, sort of thing. It's better for people to be able to help you than not be able to help you, because it is invisible. You might look miserable, but people might just think you're a miserable person. They might think, oh God, he's mardy, or she's mardy, or she's grumpy, she's not very approachable, or he's not very approachable. It's not that. It's just that you can't do it. You can't smile. You can't laugh. But people don't know that. But if you tell them, and you speak to the right people, they'll understand and they'll help you, and you'll actually think to yourself, wow, that person does understand, and they've been through it. So, it's completely fine. And the feelings that you get from it are so hard to show. You can't show someone that you're ill unless there's like physical evidence of it. If you've been sick or if you've got a cold, people can see that you're ill, but it's physically impossible to show someone how you're actually feeling inside. And the only way to really combat that is talk to people about it and tell them how you're feeling, rather than running over it in your head a million times, trying to explain to yourself, why do I feel like this? Just talk to someone else and get some advice and see what they think about it. You never know, that they might be feeling exactly the same way that you do, and you'll be able to speak to each other and just basically vent out everything that you've been feeling. It'll make you feel 10 times better. I was excited to go and see my doctor just because I needed it sorting. I needed to fix myself because I was that bad. But not everyone will see it in that limelight. Some people will just be either scared or they'll not think that it's going to work. Don't think that. Just try it. If you're scared about going to your doctor, speak to someone more closer to you, like a parent or a friend. You might be able to talk to your friends like you can't talk to anyone else. So just talk to them about it. If they're a friend, they'll listen. If they claim to be a friend, they'll listen. Because I've got friends who I thought would laugh at me, and they've listened, and they've spoke to me about it, and they've literally like been a shoulder to cry on. So don't be afraid to speak out, because it's going on in so many people's lives right now, and I'm happy again now. And at one point I thought I'd never be happy again. Like I never thought I could be happy again. And I worried about everything. And looking back on it, I didn't need to. I didn't need to worry about anything that I'd worried about in the past. So just keep trying, seek help, and eventually, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You'll get out of it. You might not think that you're going to. You might feel like it's never going to stop, but it will. That's where we want everybody to get to.
Alex, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to come and talk to us here at For the Boys. That's all, everyone. Thanks for listening.
Whew.